Good morning and welcome, everyone. This is Brian Smith with another edition of the Daily Night. I am here at Lakefront Park in Kissimmee, in case if you're wondering why you hear birds and whatnot. But I'm getting ready to go over to Gus Malzahn's press conference. On the day of the press conference, I like to go to a park and kind of hang out beforehand. But anyway, a couple of things to talk about today away from UCF, but will still impact UCF. Once we reach October in any given season, that's when the coaches really start to get fired. Obviously, USC, they didn't mess around. They had a couple of games and they fired their head coach, but they probably should have fired him 2 years ago. Why I bring this up is the following. College football is the eternal Board of Dominoes. Once one coach is fired, it impacts somebody else, somewhere else. It's just true. When a position opens up, somebody can leave your program. Somebody may take some other people with them to start a program, etc. If you look at Clemson and you think about their program over the last 10, 15 years, they hired Dabo, who wasn't even a coordinator. And I thought, well, this guy's going to flop. Obviously, he's kind of the exception to the rule. It's rare for somebody who's not a coordinator to do well. Urban Meyer would be another one. I knew him, so I kind of knew that he was going to be good because he could recruit so well, etc. But you have to pick your staff, and that's really what Urban and a lot of other guys are good at that they don't get a lot of credit for. You must pick a staff that fits you, that fits your goals, the style, the chemistry within the community. That's why the Harsin hire at Auburn I thought was very peculiar. He came to Auburn from Boise State. So all of these different places interchanging with coaches, that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, how it will potentially impact UCF, whether directly or within other teams in the American Athletic Conference or the Big 12. So here we go. If you look back at this past weekend, I bet you there were a lot of people, at least for a little while, that thought that Texas had made the right hire. They're up 21 points. They're up 28-7 at one point. But then their defense just completely collapsed against a true freshman. And I know Williams, the freshman out of D.C., was probably the best player in the country last year. But come on. You know what I mean? That's not a good sign. Could there be coaches that end up getting fired over that? Absolutely. And that's just a prime example. I don't even know who the defense coordinator is at Texas, but it doesn't matter. You can't give up 55 points when your opponent only has 7 in the early stages of the second quarter. They scored 48 in less than 3 quarters. That's terrible. That is horrific. There's going to be repercussions from that in some capacity. We'll see how it goes. But if you think about the traditional Big 12, Baylor, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Texas Christian, Iowa State, Kansas State, these are the types of programs that always seem to kind of just barely get there, but just get destroyed. And one of the reasons is coaching. They don't keep coaches around. Will this be the year that they can finally pick up that extra guy? And I bring up that conference because the Big 12 is where UCF is heading. This year for coaching searches is huge for UCF, even if they don't make any changes. 0. If you look at the opportunity to gain a really good coordinator, a receiver coach, whatever it may be, UCF and every other school is going to look at it. They don't talk about these things publicly. I don't care what anybody says. Coaches are always looking. They have a list. ADs have a list. Board of Trustees will probably know something about it. Obviously, boosters and et cetera have a very big influence on it, on not donating unless you make a change. That happens all the time. Which coaches end up going down the tubes? I'm going to throw out 2 schools that I see some problems just from kind of watching them this year and seeing the scores. West Virginia. Now, Baylor's got a good head coach. He's going to be there. That's going to be a program in the new Big 12 that's going to do very well and could be the best program in the Big 12 for the foreseeable future. I know you don't invest, per se, in stock on college football teams, but Baylor could be a team that goes into the playoffs sometime in the next 3 to 5 years because once Texas and Oklahoma leave, that league is wide open. Who else is going to join? We already know it's going to be Cincinnati, it's going to be UCF, it's going to be Brigham Young, it's going to be Houston. Do any of those teams look guaranteed to get in? No. I mean, they're good. Cincinnati's run is going to probably end after this year. I don't care what people say. I'm not sold on Luke Fickell like other people are. He's a good football coach, but he got lucky. He took a flyer on a quarterback that ended up being a 4-year starter. Complete anomaly. Complete anomaly. course, that's who UCF plays this weekend, and I just put up an offensive story about that with the skill players for Cincinnati, and they are really balanced, and they also do not turn it over all that much. So UCF will have their hands full there. But back to the coaching, if the Big 12 doesn't change some things and they're picking up guys from other staffs, etc., I'm not sure it's going to be, besides Baylor, it's going to be consistently considered for the playoffs as the league as a whole. UCF and Cincinnati, I think, can. Houston can if they get the right coaching staff. I don't think Dana Holgerson's the answer there. That should be a very easy job. He's not getting it done. Who's going to come in there? He's not going to be there much longer. There's just no way. Either that or they don't care about football, even though they're joining the Big 12. He is not the answer. Which other teams? Which other teams go? Iowa State, do you really think they're going to keep their coach much longer? Maybe. Do you really think they can consistently compete for the playoffs? Maybe. He's done a good job keeping his staff around, but it is what it is. All right, and then to this point, I'm going to end segment 1 on that, just kind of the roundabout. College football coaches, there's going to be a lot of change. That's what round 1 is. And I'm curious to see how it helps the Big 12 or hurts, because you got to go out and spend a lot of money. You're going to have to steal guys. There's going to be guys that get fired. There's going to be a good guy on their staff that doesn't get retained. Who comes in? So with that, consider the following. Besides USC's head coach, which coaches in college football could get canned? Thus, that coach has a staff that is now probably unemployed by and large. I want you to think about that as we head into segment 2. With segment 2, I think the obvious hire here that's going to have to be made from somewhere, NFL or college, is LSU. Ed Orgeron is toast. There's no way in the world that guy is staying around there. He is lost as a dog in the woods who got dropped off 50 miles from home. He doesn't have the same coaches around him that he did before, and he doesn't have about 35 NFL players. Number one pick in the draft being one of them, and arguably the greatest season ever by any player, Joe Burrow, in college football in 2019. Since then, they just haven't been very good at all. LSU's 500, despite the fact they probably still have 20 NFL players. It's ridiculous. They got stomped by Kentucky. They were down 21-0, I believe. If you did a recruiting comparison between those two schools, it'd be 2.5, 3-1 in terms of like 4 and 5 stars, conservatively. Ed Orgeron needs to figure it out, and he needs to figure it out fast because his situation is tenuous. He got caught cheating. His wife dumped him. There's all kinds of Title IX problems at LSU. They have a lot of issues to clear up. But lastly, with them, that staff does have some good coaches, and it's located right next to the Big 12. If UCF loses coaches this year, and coaches could leave, you just don't know, that'd be a staff that might have somebody that UCF could pick up, because you're going to recruit Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. You're going to be there anyway. You're going to hit those states. Can UCF find a few different coaches sometime over the next 2 to 3 years? Yeah, but it would be great to get some with SEC ties. It's just true. When that guy walks in the door of an area like Texas and they go into a high school, if they say they coached at LSU before and or they know the guys, it matters. It does. So that's something to think about. But again, back to the main point. Who else in the Big 12 can pick up somebody to elevate the league? I'm not seeing anything that's good right now in the Big 12. Without Oklahoma, I'm not counting them because they're the two teams that are marquee, and they're both going to the SEC. I believe it's 2023 for them as well, like it is for UCF. I don't like the shape of the Big 12 in the short term, minus Baylor. I really like the head coach there. He was the defense coordinator at LSU for the 2019 championship. Beyond that, Oklahoma State has been stagnant for quite a while. Good coach. They just can't get enough players. Their recruiting is mediocre at best. Kansas State has always relied on junior college kids. Iowa State to a certain degree did too. But now they're hitting Florida, actually, especially the Tampa area, and getting some players. I know Rocco Becht is one of the kids over at Wiregrass Ranch that lives pretty close to me. They're getting. Who else can get somebody that's going to make a difference? That's the question. As you read articles this week and you go through things this week, Note that everything is based on eventually UCF jumping to the next league. And while you want UCF to get coaches, obviously, it's also very important that you play teams that have some dominoes that you can knock over that are a little bigger. We beat a top 10 team. We beat a top 5 team, whatever. No Oklahoma, no Texas. UCF fans forever have wanted the Knights to have a fair shot to go to the playoff. Rightfully so. Well, I can tell you right now, with the shape that the Big 12 is in, even at undefeated UCF, I would not guarantee if it was against this schedule this year in the Big 12, pick up whichever one you wanted. If you didn't have Oklahoma and Texas involved, and it was the teams that are coming in, but we advanced it 2 years, I don't think they'd get in because the schedule would be that weak. That's just my opinion. At best, it would be 50-50. And it's a terrible year in college football for top-end teams, and now there's some topsy-turvy, so maybe I'm just completely out of my mind. But if it keeps going like this, now if it keeps going like this, UCF or anybody undefeated might get in, but I'm guessing there's going to be some more consistency coming up, not like this last weekend. Alabama getting beat, threw a wrench into it, but they'll still probably get in because they're Alabama if they win out. Beyond that, do you really trust Texas Tech? No. Oklahoma State? No. Kansas State? And they've got a really good coaching staff. Do they have enough talent? No. Iowa State? Good coaching staff. Got a great running back, NFL player, Brock Purdy. Pretty good, but they laid an egg and they didn't get it done against Iowa early in the year. That was their marquee game. That was their chance. It was national TV. It was game day. And they laid an egg. They didn't get it done. The Big 12 needs something to happen, and I'm tying it to coaches because it's not just head coaches that matter. It's assistants. Even if all the head coaches stay the same, something has to change. There needs to be more talent. They need to bring in more assistants that are good recruiters. They need to find more coordinators and get it done, especially on defense. This is ridiculous how bad the defense is in the Big 12. UCF, they played really good defense this past weekend, especially in clutch moments. We need to see that from the rest of the Big 12. So that's something to think about today. We're only 2 years out from them kind of, changing what they are. Their world is going to change. They need the teams in the league to change with them and get better at defense. UCF's recruiting much better at defense. I'm going to Lakeland today, see Keanis Thompson, one of the defensive ends they're bringing in. I mean, he's a stud. You have to get guys like that constantly, and I'm not seeing enough of it, minus Texas and Oklahoma, and they didn't even play any defense this weekend either, sadly, in the Big 12. So coaching changes. I think Orgeron is toast. I think the guy at Kentucky who just beat him, ironically, might be that guy that comes down. How many of his staff would he take? Would he even be interested? I'm just purely speculating, but Stoops is a heck of a coach. Great defensive mind, and LSU's defense is very prideful, and right now they stink despite their talent. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Everybody have a great day, and I will talk to you on Tuesday.